right, Austin, you ready for these? You know, if the answers are the same as your dad's, that's fine as well, but I'm sure you've got your own angle. So, for you, what's the one thing that you've done that's been the most important to the success of your operation?
I think the biggest thing that's been a success to starting the soil health journey was, for my operation, was probably going to some of these schools. Just being able to start my farming career with working more with the land and with nature, I think is very, very helpful for me long term than if I would have got to start farming right out of college. I would have been a lot more conventional mindset, and I would have had a bigger learning curve and would have been more stuck in my ways, if I started this 20 years down the road.
Can you recall a moment when the light bulb went on for you?
Time that the light bulb went off for me to get interested in soil health was probably 2018 soil health school at Kurt Stiefvater's. Once again, those guys, everybody there was just so welcoming. I've been to a lot of different ag groups, and I have never felt so welcomed by like the NRCS folks, the Soil Health Coalition folks, Extension, SDSU Extension people. I felt very welcomed and learned a lot, and the rainfall simulator was very eye-opening.
What has surprised you as you've tried some of these new ideas? What surprised you the most?
I think the thing that's the most surprising starting these new soil health practices would be sometimes the pushback you get from local people in the community, people that just haven't really learned about these practices. I make my decision, and then sometimes they're older, wiser people, so to speak. They've been doing this a lot longer than I, and it's sometimes a challenge when they think I should be going a different direction. I don't know if that's a very good answer.
I like it. What would you say the biggest misconception is about all of these soil health practices, the whole soil health idea?
I think the biggest misconception I see with people not, what was the question again?
What's the biggest misconception you find when you, amongst people who look at soil health as something different?
The biggest misconception I see with the soil health system that a lot of people have is that maybe you're more lazy in your farming operation, or maybe on a really fringe budget or something like that, and that's why you didn't do the tillage or things like that. When you're driving down the road and you see the no-till field and you got stocks standing up, and you might have cows out grazing, and then next thing you know, you're just dropping in with the planter. I think some people almost see that as a sign of laziness or something, or that you aren't going to achieve the same yields as the conventional till neighbor, but I find that to be completely false. You have to be more in tune with your land and make very wise management decisions for it to work. And the yields, I'm not a seasoned farmer, but from working with you and doing the little bit that I've done, the yields are just as good in my experience.
Is there something that you'd like to still do that you haven't yet done to improve the soil health on your farm?
Something I'd like to do to improve the soil health on my farm, I guess, would be, keep building that soil structure better. I'm transitioning some fields that were conventionally tilled, and I can see a difference, from my dad, who's been in the no-till longer, versus this newly transitioned field, I have a little ways to go on building that soil structure, and I think planting will get easier in time as we build that soil structure, because this spring it was tough.
All right. What advice do you have for someone who's considering changing the way they farm?
Some advice I'd give somebody who's looking to transition would be to get connected with people who are on this journey already. The Soil Health Coalition, the Grassland Coalition, the NRCS folks, I have found to be very, very helpful and instrumental in me really buying in and, believing in these practices. You really need to be connected, because if you're just making the change and you are still running in the same circles with people who are not interested in these practices, it can be kind of depressing, and you might just go back to your old ways, and you won't get to see the exciting parts of farming, I think.
We knew that we were powerless in the face of Mother Nature. First step.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Inside joke. So, when you walk across your croplands, what do you look for as an indicator of healthy soil?
An indicator I look for healthy soil is to not have erosion. I can remember some of these hills after a big rain. I mean, you'd almost feel kind of sick. Like, I had a part in creating these rills that are forming into little gullies. So now I look at big indicator after it rains. I don't want to see any soil that moved.
What change have you made that you at first thought would never work?
I guess a change that I see that I didn't think would work. I look back when my dad was doing some of the first no-till corn. I was kind of in that mindset of, I don't think that probably is the best thing to do around here. I feel like we gotta have some sort of tillage to warm up the soil and get the fertilizer placed properly. So I was on that strip till mindset, but I've been definitely proven wrong, and I see a lot of good success.
What are the signs that your cropland is resilient?
Some signs I see that our cropland is resilient would be, does the crop look pretty healthy? I like last summer we got a couple inch downpour, and I remember some of the neighboring fields, they had a bunch of soil wash into their ditch, even gravel washing off the road that came from some conventionally tilled fields. Both situations, they had to physically dig the material out of the ditch. And I see by not having that around our fields, I think that's a sign of success.
What does the word resiliency mean to you?
Resiliency means to me to be able to withstand some of the extreme conditions. I think the upper Midwest is just a very unique area. It can be really, really dry. It can be really, really wet. And that's probably where I'm calibrated to see wet years. So maybe now we're going to more of a dry time, similar to how you grew up, and most people who have been farming, they know South Dakota can be really dry. I probably have not seen that personally. But to have a resilient soil that can sustain through those dry periods, and on the flip side, if you can infiltrate that water and put it deeper in the soil profile on the wet years, it's just way more resilient scenario. And even just having cover over the soil surface to buffer that temperature. You're not getting the high spikes of the high temperatures and then really, really cold because you don't have any insulation or anything covering the soil.
Right. What are the things that you see now that healthy soil health practices have what are the things the indicators that you're seeing where soil health practices have actually improved your pocketbook?
Some indicators that soil health has improved financially for my farm, I would say not doing any tillage has helped save a huge fuel cost. And you know, I'm young in my farming journey, so I have to rent a tractor for sure. You know, this year I rented a tractor. I bought my own planter this year, but every time I need to do something, I need to pay for that fuel and somehow track the hours that I'm putting on his equipment. If I had to do that extra couple passes of tillage, it adds up. And another thing I think about when I'm filling up the tractors with fuel, you know, there's that total number of gallons that have gone through that pump on the fuel barrel. It's just kind of eye-opening when you think about we could have shaved off a third or 50% of those gallons, you know, over the course of time if we would have been in a no-till system. So that, when you start putting a dollar figure to that, it adds up very quickly.
Right, that's all from me. If we put